Hello, this is Bernie Wall, and I'd like to welcome you to another short video in my IELTS Learning Tips series. And for the next 4 videos, what I'm going to do is to take each part of the IELTS test in turn, and I'm going to look at some of the questions that students often ask about that particular type or particular test. So today we're going to start with reading. Reading's one of my most favorite things to teach. I love teaching reading. And I do find that a lot of students are a little anxious about the reading. And they often have many questions about the question types and other aspects of it. So I want to look at the top 10 questions that I'm often asked, and I'm going to give you some short answers to those questions. So I hope that if you've got those questions and you're concerned about those things or worrying about those things, that you'll get some answers about them on this video today. Okay, so let's get started. And I'm going to share some slides with the questions, and then I'll answer them one by one. So the top 10 IELTS reading questions, and I hope that these will help you to get over that issue and also improve your reading generally. So let's see what they are. So the first 5. Should I read the whole text? Well, I think most people nowadays do not do this. And the answer is really no, because you don't necessarily need the whole text. I was doing a reading test last week with a student, and there was one paragraph in one of the passages which we only needed for one short question. So you don't need everything to answer the questions, and the biggest reason that you shouldn't do this is because of the time. You really will not have time to read it in total. So you need, for purposes of the whole text, to really improve your skimming and your scanning techniques so that you can take in all of the information very quickly. Right, this is linked. How can you manage your time? Okay, firstly, by not reading the whole text carefully, because you won't have time for that. And secondly, by managing the questions. So the biggest time waster is spending too much time on one question. Now you've got 40 questions, and if you spend 5-10 minutes on one question, you know what's going to happen. You're going to be left at the end with several questions that you cannot answer. If you need a band 7, you're going to need around 30 out of 40 academic. For general, I know you need higher than that. You need 34. So it's even more critical that you don't waste time if you're doing the general paper. So it's important that you allocate just a minute per question. And if you can't find the answer, leave the question and move on. Chances are it will pop up as you're looking for another question. And if you miss one question altogether, but you manage to complete all 40, then your chances of getting a high band are higher. So it's not worth spending a lot of time on one question and then jeopardizing being the end of the test and not being able to complete. So keep moving, and then when you've finished all the questions, if you've managed your time well and done a minute per question or so, you'll find you have a couple of minutes at the end to go back and look at those that you're not sure about. Okay, why do you feel panic? You feel panic because you make yourself panicked, I think, because perhaps your techniques are not strong enough. Or because your vocabulary is not wide enough. There are several reasons for feeling panic. But the thing is, if you practice the reading a lot and you have strong techniques, then, and you tell yourself there's plenty of time, there is plenty of time. The people who set these exams set them knowing exactly how long it will take. Now, that should include anybody whose English is slightly weak and they're going to get a lower score. So if you're at band 7 or 8 level, you should be able to do this very quickly. And I did another video about doing it in 50 minutes. And my experience is that those people who have strong technique and who practice a lot do not panic, and they can generally do it in 50 minutes and have 5-10 minutes to go over any questions that they are not able to do. So panic is because you're not using the right techniques, or you're not practicing enough. Okay, keywords. Generally speaking, I would say most people don't choose enough keywords. There are 2 types of keywords. There are the ones that will find you the place in the text, and I like to call those location keywords. So there'll be numbers, there'll be names, there'll be words associated with the topic. But there are another set of words that you need to underline too, and these are words that give you more detail. So they may be words like in the future, in the past, they might be only, might be everybody, most, all of these more, you know, not topic words, but they are just as important. And I would say generally for every question, you should have 3, at least 3, and sometimes 4, and sometimes even 5 words that should all come together when you find the right place. Now, sometimes you'll be looking for synonyms, as you know. It may not be the word in the question. But if you have the right place, those words should come together and the answer should just pop out. So if that's not happening, you need more practice and you need strong technique. Okay, how can you be sure? Because if you have analysed the question well, if you've chosen the right keywords, and you have the right place in the passage, then the answer should be clear and obvious. If you don't find the answer, then probably you haven't got enough keywords, you're in the wrong place, or you've missed something important in the question. So you need to go back to the question, have another look, and then come back to the passage again. And mostly the answer should be obvious if you have all of the things you need to find it. Again, it's all about practice. It's all about making sure that you do those 3 things. Get the right keywords, find the right place, because sometimes the words, if you only choose 1 or 2 words, they may be all over the passage, and you have to find the exact place that this answer is located. And that's by pulling the keywords together. And then finally, make sure you haven't missed anything in the passage or missed anything in the question. Sometimes, and particularly in passage 3, you may need to read the sentence before, especially if you have any pronouns. You might need to read the sentence before to discover what that is. And sometimes you might need to read the sentence after. Whatever you do, you should always read the whole sentence. Otherwise, you'll miss something. So then you'll know your answer is right. Okay, let's have a look at the next few questions. Right, if there are words you don't understand, you have to try and look at the words that are around that word to see if you can guess. And quite often, the sentence itself will tell you what the word means, or an idea of what the word means. Sometimes you may just think, I really don't know what it means. I can't understand the sentence without it. But if you feel that that word is the word you're looking for, because everything else in the sentence points to that word as being the word for the answer, then just choose it. If you don't know what it means, it doesn't matter at that point. So there's not much you can do about words you don't know if you can't work them out from the context. If when you're doing your practice there are lots of words you don't know, then you need to improve your vocabulary. And the topics in IELTS do tend to keep coming around in different ways. So you can actually go and learn or read articles about these topics and then try and learn some of the words. Words in IELTS come up again and again and again. I've been doing IELTS for over 20 years, and I can almost anticipate what the synonyms are going to be sometimes. So, for example, if it's about animals, you're going to find carnivore, herbivore, omnivore, predator, prey. These words come up all the time. So it's important that you learn them, because you just might get an article on that topic in your IELTS exam. Okay, reading is a good way of improving vocabulary. So read anything, read stories, read magazines, read articles, read journals. But if you read, you'll learn a lot of words. And it doesn't have to be a whole book, you know, just set yourself 15-20 minutes every day when you do some reading that's not necessarily IELTS. It could be some other kind of reading, so that you can improve your vocabulary. And then if there are 1 or 2 words in that reading that you didn't know, then just try and learn them, because they might be useful. Okay, if you don't understand the passage, that's a problem. Usually, the first thing you should do is to look at the title. Now, sometimes the titles are obvious, and sometimes they're not. And you might need to read a little bit more. Generally, I would read the title. I would skim the first paragraph, because that's like an introduction, as it is with your writing. And it should give you an idea of where the passage will go and what's going to be included. And then if you can skim through the passage and just see anything else that's there. So there might be some names in there. There might be some other topic words that will help you get a bit more information about the passage. But if that isn't enough to answer the questions, then it suggests to me that you need more English. You need to perhaps get more vocabulary and do a little bit more on sentence structure and basic grammar and the grammar of sentences if you're really not getting anything from the passage. Look at what your score is when you do the reading. If you want 7, if you're getting 25 and above, then you just need to keep practicing. But if you're getting 20 and below, then you probably need to do a lot more work around just reading English and vocabulary before you're going to get anywhere near your band 7. So just be realistic and think about what you need to do. And try and do more reading and try and learn more words. And then hopefully that situation will improve. Okay, yes, no, not given, true, false, not given. This is a question type that is one many students have problems with. And I would say if I'm doing a reading test, it can sometimes pose a question for me, especially is it no, or is it not given? Is it false? Is it not given? Sometimes there can be a slight doubt, and it's easy to persuade yourself that one or other is true. Basically, the difference between each of these is yes and true. They are slightly different, but we'll deal with them as if they were not for now. Yes and true must agree with the passage. So whatever it says in the question, it will say the same thing in the passage. No and false are contradictions. That means the opposite. So whatever it says in the passage, the question is going to be the opposite. And so you can say, actually, that's not true. The opposite is true. So it's false. Be very careful if you have these questions with negatives in them. So if it says no, or if it says not, you have to think a little bit more about the question. Not given means either the information is not there at all, or the information is not enough to answer the question. So sometimes where students get confused between no and false and not given, it's because the information is not enough. And so they take it to be false. because the information's there, but it's not true. But actually, sometimes it might just be that you haven't got enough information to answer the question. And you need to ask yourself another question, say, well, is this possible? But I just don't know about it because it doesn't tell me. So if you haven't got enough information, then it's still not given. It's not false. False has to be a direct contradiction. Okay. And the last one, if your score is fluctuating, this is a very common problem. It happens when students practice, and it also happens sometimes in the exam. So I've had students come to me who've got 7, and then the next time they've got 6, and then they might have got 7 again, and then 6.5. And generally speaking, I find that the same thing happens in their practice. The reason is usually that there are some question types that are weak. So if you are weak on true, false, not given, and you get a test with 3 true, false, not given questions, 1 in each passage, then you're going to lose marks on that question type. The same sometimes with headings. If you're weak on headings and you get 2 lots of headings, or if you're weak on multiple choice and you get 3 lots of multiple choice, then it stands to reason that those scores are going to be lower. So the key to getting a consistent band is to make sure that you can master every single type of question. So you can't afford to have any weak question types. Going into the exam, crossing your fingers that you don't get headings is not a good strategy. So make sure that every question type is equally good and you can do all of them equally well. And that comes from, firstly, having strong techniques on all the question types, and secondly, lots of practice. Because once you know about how to do a question, or somebody gives you the strategy or the technique for a question, that's not enough. It's not going to help you unless you practice it. And it's practicing that makes it improve. So I would say there are some questions there that you're not very good at doing, and you need to practice them and get a good technique around them. And then you should be able to improve your score across the board. But that's generally the problem. Another slight problem could be to do with topic. So I know some students who, if the topic is within their experience, they can do it very, very well. But if it's a topic that's outside of their experience, they just go into a panic. And then that goes back to, I don't understand the passages. So you need to think about, how can I improve my vocabulary generally? And how can I improve my techniques generally? So that when I get something on, I don't know, aerospace, it's not going to worry me. And basically, if you have strong techniques, you should be able to apply those to any topic, whatever it is, whether you're familiar with it or not. So I hope that helps you. Those are probably the top 10 questions that I get, although I do get a wide range of questions. And I hope that helps. But remember, knowing is one step, practicing is the sure way of improving your score. So again, I've written about this in more detail on my IELTS Learning Tips website, and there's a link here for you to go over there and read in more detail. Some of the articles I write also have links to extra information or exercises or whatever. So it's worth going and having a look at them in more detail. And there are other things on my website that you can use to help you improve your IELTS. So next time we're going to look at the top 10 questions for writing. So I hope that you'll come along and watch that video, which will help you with your writing. Okay, thank you. And I'll stop sharing here. And thank you for watching. And I hope this was useful. Goodbye.